The complete works of Swami Vivekananda Jnana Yoga, Chapter 9, Unity in Diversity, Part 1. The self-existent one projected in the senses outward, and therefore a man looks outward, not within himself. A certain wise one, desiring immortality with inverted senses, perceived the self within. As I have already said, the first inquiry that we find in the Vedas was concerning outward things. And then a new idea came that the reality of things is not to be found in the external world. Not by looking outwards, but by turning the eyes, as it is literally expressed, inwards. And the word used for the soul is very significant. It is he who has gone inward, the innermost reality of our being, the heart center, the core, from which, as it were, everything comes out, the central sun of which the mind, the body, the sense organs, and everything else we have are but rays going outwards. Men of childish intellect, ignorant persons, run after desires which are external and enter the trap of far reaching death. But the wise, understanding immortality, never seek for the external, the eternal in this life of finite things. The same idea is here made clear, that in this external world which is full of finite things, it is impossible to see and find the infinite. The infinite must be sought in that alone which is infinite. And the only thing infinite about us is that which is within us, our own soul. Neither the body nor the mind, not even our thoughts, nor the world we see around us are infinite. The seer, he to whom they all belong, the soul of man, he who is awake in the eternal man alone is infinite. And to seek the infinite cause of this whole universe, we must go there. In the infinite soul alone we can find it. What is here is there too, and what is there is here also. He who sees the manifold goes from death to death. We have seen how at first there was a desire to go to heaven. When these ancient Aryans became dissatisfied with the world around them, they naturally thought that after death they would go to some place where they would be all happiness, without any misery. These places they multiplied and they called Swargas. The word may be translated as heavens, where there would be joy forever, the body would become perfect and also the mind, and there they would live with their forefathers. But as soon as the philosophy came, men found that this was impossible and absurd. The very idea of an infinite in place would be a contradiction in terms, as a place must begin and continue in time. Therefore, they had to give up that idea. They found out that the gods who lived in these heavens had once been human beings on earth, who through their different good works had become gods. And the Godheads, as they called them, were different states, different positions. None of the gods spoken of in the Vedas are permanent individuals. For instance, Indra and Varuna are not the names of certain persons, but the names of positions as governors and so on. The Indra who lived before is not the same person as the Indra of the present day. He has passed away, and another man from earth has filled his place. So also with all the other gods. These are certain positions which are fulfilled successively by human souls who have raised themselves to the condition of gods, and yet even they die. In the old Rig Veda we find the word immortality used with regard to these gods, but later on it is dropped entirely, for they found that immortality, which is beyond time and space, cannot be spoken of with regard to any physical form, however subtle it may be, however fine it may be, it must have a beginning in time and space, for the necessary factors that enter into the makeup of form are in space. Try to think of a form without space. It is impossible. Space is one of the materials, as it were, which make up the form, and this is continually changing. Space and time are in Maya. And this idea is expressed in the line, what is whole, that is there too. If there are these gods, they must be bound by the same laws that apply here, and all laws involve destruction and renewal again and again. These laws are molding matter into different forms and crushing them out again. Everything born must die, and so if there are heavens, the same laws must hold good there. In this world, we find that all happiness is followed by misery as its shadow. Life has its shadow, death. They must go together because they are not contradictory, not two separate existences, but different manifestations of the same unit. Life and death, sorrow and happiness, good and evil. The dualistic conception that good and evil are two separate entities and that they are both going on eternally is absurd on the face of it. They are the diverse manifestations of one and the same fact, one time appearing as bad and at another time appearing as good. The difference does not exist in kind, but only in degree. They differ from each other in the degree of intensity. We find as a fact that the same nerve systems carry good and bad sensations alike. And when the nerves are injured, neither sensation comes to us. If a certain nerve is paralyzed, we do not get the pleasurable feelings that we are used to come along that wires, and at the same time we do not get the painful feelings either. They are never two, but the same. Again, the same produces pleasure and pain at different times of life. The same phenomena will produce pleasure in one and pain in the other. The eating of meat produces pleasure to a man, but pain to the animal which is eaten. There has never been anything which gives pleasure to all alike. Some are pleased, others displeased. So on it will go. Therefore, this duality of existence is denied. And what follows? I told you in my last lecture that we can never have ultimately everything good on this earth and nothing bad. It may have disappointed and frightened some of you, but I cannot help it. And I am open to conviction when I am shown to the contrary. And until that can be proved to me, and I can find that it is true, I cannot say so. The general argument against my statement, and apparently a very convincing one, is that in the course of evolution, all that is evil in what we see around us is gradually being eliminated. And the result is that if this elimination continues for millions of years, a time will come when all evil will have been exterminated and the good alone will reign. This is apparently a very sound argument. Wish to God that it was true. But there is a fallacy in it. And it is this, that it takes for granted that both good and evil are things that are eternally fixed. It takes for granted that there is a definite mass of evil which may be represented by 100 and likewise of good, and that this mass of evil is being diminished every day, leaving only the good. But is it so? The history of the world shows that evil is a continuously increasing quantity as well as good. Take the lowest man, he lives in the forest. His sense of enjoyment is very small, and so also is his power to suffer. His misery is entirely on the sense plane. If he does not get plenty of food, he is miserable. But give him a plenty of food and freedom to roam and to hunt, and he is perfectly happy. His happiness consists only in the senses, and so does his misery also. But if that man increases in knowledge, his happiness will increase. The intellect will open to him and his sense enjoyment will evolve into intellectual enjoyment. He will feel pleasure in reading a beautiful poem, and a mathematical problem will be of absorbing interest to him. But with these, the inner nerves will become more and more susceptible to the miseries of mental pain, of which the savage does not think. Take a very simple illustration. In Tibet, there is no marriage and there is no jealousy, yet we know that marriage is a much higher state. The Tibetans have not known the wonderful enjoyment, the blessing of chastity, the happiness of having a chaste, virtuous wife or a chaste, virtuous husband. These people cannot feel that. And similarly, they do not feel the intense jealousy of a chaste wife or husband, or the misery caused by unfaithfulness on either side, with all the heart burnings and sorrows which believers in chastity experience. On one side, the latter gain happiness, but on the other side, they suffer misery too. Take your country, which is the richest in the world and which is more luxurious than any other, and see how intense is the misery. How many more lunatics you have compared with other races, only because the desires are so keen. A man must keep up a high standard of living, and the amount of money he spends in 1 year would be a fortune to a man in India. You cannot preach to him of simple living because society demands so much of him. The wheel of society is rolling on. It stops not for the widow's tears or the orphan's wails. This is the state of things everywhere. Your sense of enjoyment is developed. Your society is very much more beautiful than some others. You may have so many more things to enjoy, but those who have fewer have much less misery. You can argue through this throughout. The higher the ideal you have in the brain, the greater is your enjoyment, and the more the profound your misery. One is like the shadow of the other. That the evils are being eliminated may be true, but if so, the good also must be dying out. But are there not evils multiplying fast and the good diminishing? If I may put it so, if good increases in arithmetical progression, evil increases in geometrical progression. And this is Maya. This is neither optimism nor pessimism. The Vedanta does not take the position that this world is only a miserable one. That would be untrue. At the same time, it is a mistake to say that this world is full of happiness and blessings. So it is useless to tell children that this world is all good, all flowers, all milk and honey. That is what we have all dreamt. At the same time, it is erroneous to think, because one man has suffered more than the other, that all is evil. It is this duality, this play of good and evil, that makes our world of experience. At the same time, the Vedanta says, do not think that good and evil are two separate essences, for they are one and the same thing, appearing in different degrees and in different guises and producing differences of feelings in the same mind. So the first thought of the Vedanta is that the finding of unity in the external, the one existence manifesting itself. However different it may appear in manifestation, think of the old crude theory of the Persians, two gods creating this world. The good God doing everything that is good, and the bad one everything bad. On the very face of it, you see the absurdity, for if it were to be carried out, every law of nature must have two parts, one of which is manipulated by one God, and then he goes away and the other God manipulates the other part. There the difficulty comes that both are working in the same world, and these two gods keep themselves in harmony by injuring one portion and doing good to the other. This is a crude case, of course, the crudest way of expressing the duality of world of existence. But take the more advanced, the more abstract theory that this world is partly good and partly bad. This is also absurd, arguing from the same standpoint. It is the law of unity that gives us our food, and it is the same law that kills many through accidents or misadventure.